Tianyou, run quickly. Don't turn your head. The mother's roar exploded in her ears, piercing into her heart like a knife. I gritted my teeth, and there was a stone under my feet. I almost fell a dog to eat shit, but I didn't dare to stop. Behind him, the fire shone through the sky in the direction of the village, and the smoke rolled around. The screams and the sound of the sword collision mixed together, like the ground opening open the door. I am only 16 years old. Last night, I was fighting with my dad to eat an extra piece of roasted rabbit meat. I was helping with weeding in the field this morning. Why did this turn out in the blink of an eye? The new god apostle, the butchers wearing black iron armor, rode into the village with giant wolf, killed people when they saw them, and burned house when they saw them. They shouted purified strangeness in their mouths, but we are just ordinary farmers, so what's wrong with them? God, you, hide. My father's voice came from afar. I turned around and saw that he was holding a handful of raw iron blades and sank the two apostles. The sword was still left by his soldiers for several days when he was young, and he had already been free to chop firewood, but he still tried his best to fight. My eyes were hot and I wanted to sweep over and help him, but he glared at me fiercely. Roll. Live. I had no choice but to grit my teeth and run to the small forest outside the village. My heart felt like it was burned by fire, and it hurts and is both painful and irritating. After running for a few steps, a scream came from behind. My heart skipped a beat and I walked for a while, but I didn't dare to turn around. I know that's the sound of my dad. The trees were pitch black, and only the moonlight leaked from the leaves, making the ground spots. I gasped heavily, hid behind an old tree, and heard the sound of murder coming closer and closer. Suddenly, the bushes beside my feet moved for a moment, and I almost screamed. When I looked closely, it was my little sister. Her face was covered in dust, her eyes were covered in silence, and she trembled and grabbed my sleeve. Brother, Mom is gone. My brain sounded like it was struck by lightning. My mother is gone, and my dad is. I held my eyes tightly, hugged my little sister, and said in a low voice, "Don't be afraid, I'm here." But when I said this, my hands were shaking. What can I fuck? I am just a farmer boy who is not very powerful, and even chickens are hard to kill. How can I protect her? But I didn't think of a way, and the sound of heavy footsteps in iron armor collided. My heart beat as fast as a drum, and I was shaking my little sister behind the tree, and I didn't even dare to come out. A low voice sounded, "Search. That boy can't run far, the family's blood must be shut down." Family blood? What does it mean? Aren't our family just ordinary farmers? But I didn't have time to think about it because my feet were getting closer and closer, and I could even hear the bloody smell on them. The little girl was trembling with surprise. I covered her mouth and said in a low voice, "Don't be moved, I won't let them touch you." But it is always cooler than hard mouth. A black armored apostle walked straight to the tree where we were hiding, and the moonlight shone on his cold mask, like an emotional machine. He looked down and grinned. "I found you, little mouse." My brain was empty and instinctively held my younger sister and rolled it to the side, but he kicked it and hit me in the back. I felt so painful that my eyes were dark and I fell directly to the ground. The little girl screamed, and was pulled up by him. I read my eyes and tried to slap people over, but he slapped him with a slap. I flew out directly, my brain hit the stone, and blood flowed down the magnitude. With that skill, do you want to run away? The apostle sneered, pulled out the long sword from his waist, and pointed the tip of the sword straight into my chest. "You old god's evil deeds are sins when you are alive." Old god? A bad sin? I was full of doubts, but I was still more angry. I watched my little sister being pulled by him, crying heartbrokenly, and it seemed like there was a fire in my heart. I slammed and got up and shouted, "Let her go. There is something to impulse me." He was stunned for a moment, then laughed. "There is something? Okay, I'll take you on the way first." As he said, the sword flashed and pierced over. I closed my eyes and thought this was over, but the next second, there was no pain on my body, but instead I heard the crispness of a metal collision. I glanced at the apostle's sword, as if it was being held back by something. and in my hand, I don't know when there was an old blue copper hanging wall. It was stuffed to me before my father left, saying it was something passed down from his ancestors, so I could keep it well. The pendant would radiate a faint blue light, as if it was alive, shaking the apostle's sword to shake continuously. His face changed and he gritted his teeth and said, "Is this the breath of the old god? You are indeed a bad person." My brain was in a group and I didn't understand what he was saying, but the hanging light became brighter and brighter, and my chest became hotter, as if there was a force rushing. Suddenly, a low voice echoed in my brain, "Bloody descendants, I have already sensed your anger. Take my strength and revenge." What's the thing? I was shocked, but without reacting, the heat flow rushed into my body from the hanging wall, as if it had ignited my bones. I screamed in pain, but then, I felt a sense of strength, and every muscle in my body seemed to be filled with explosive energy. The apostle saw that the victory was not good and shouted, "Kill him. You can't wake him up." He slammed the sword again, but this time, I instinctively raised my hand, and the light of the hanging wall turned into a blue light blade, and a bang sound shattered his sword directly. He stood there in disbelief. I gasped and looked at my hands, and there was only one thought in my brain: is this power, is it me? "Brother!" The little sister's crying sound pulled back my attention. I looked up and saw that the apostle had returned to God, threw down the blade, took out a dagger and rushed towards the little sister. My eyes roared, and my anger thrust my brain, and I rushed over and punched him in the chest. Bang! I never expected this punch to fly him out, knocking him out, spitting blood in his mouth, and falling to the ground. I was stunned for a moment, looked down at my fist, and my heart was shocked and happy. But before I could get over the sensation, I heard my footsteps outside the forest, and I shouted, "There is a silence here. Come quickly." My heart sank, and I knew I could not drag it anymore, so I picked up my younger sister and ran away. But after running for a few steps, the pursuers behind were approaching. I heard the tight sound of the bowstring. Then several arrows shot over and wiped my shoulders and flew over, causing me to grit my teeth. "Brother, run away, don't worry about me," the little sister cried, but how could I take her off? I gritted my teeth and hugged her. My brain was full of the shadows of my father and mother, and the screams of the villagers. The fire in my heart became stronger and stronger. I suddenly stopped and turned to face the apostles who were chasing me. "Want to kill me? Come on!" I yelled, and the light of the hanging bulb exploded again, and the blue light covered my whole body, as if I had put a layer of armor on it. The apostles were stunned for a moment, and one of them sneered, "Looking for death." He rushed over with a knife, but I didn't hide at all. I took the knife and slashed the blue light, directly breaking out a gap, and I was insufficiency. "What?" The apostle was stunned. I took the opportunity to kick him and kicked him a few meters away. The few other things changed, but when I didn't give them time to react, I rushed up and punched each one with blue light, like an iron smashing the iron plate, and knocked them all down in a few seconds. I gasped heavily and stood there, looking at the apostle full of earth, and an unprecedented pleasure surged in my heart. But this is not enough, far away. I have to tell my father and mother's revenge and the lives of the people in the village. "Brother, you're so terrible." The little sister looked at me, her eyes full of admiration, but I didn't have time to be excited, and there were horse hoof sounds coming from afar, and more apostles were coming. I gritted my teeth, picked her up, and said in a low voice, "Let's go, this is just the beginning." After saying that, I turned around and slid into the deep forest of trees, and a fire ignited in my heart. New God apostle, right? Yaokuan, right? No matter who you are, I will swear that one day, I will let you lose blood. The night wind in the forest made my face hurt. I hugged my little sister and ran all the way, stepping on dead branches under my feet, making a cracking sound, and the horse hoof sound behind me was getting closer and closer. I was so panicked that I didn't dare to stop. My little sister leaned against me, crying so hard that she couldn't help but keep silent, and her voice stopped. "Brother, can we run away?" "Yes. Sure, it's possible." I gritted my teeth and replied to her, although I had no idea. The blue light of the hanging wall kept flashing, as if reminding me of the power that had just exploded, but I didn't know how to control it, so I just beat those apostles to purely betray the instinct. Now I'm sweating heavily now, the heat flow is gone, and only fatigue and soreness are left. After running for about half a minute, the horse's hooves finally ran away a little. I gasped and stopped and found a hidden shrub to hide. My little sister's face turned pale, and I touched her head, which was so scary. My heart sank, knowing that she was overshocked. She probably was still hurt and had to find a place to rest. But where's there a safe place in these wilderness mountains? Just as I was worried, a slight response suddenly came from the side. I stood up tightly, squeezing my little sister, and said in a low voice, "Don't make a sound." I held my breath and stared at the direction of the sound. The bush swayed and a figure walked out, not the black armor dressed in the apostle of the new god, but was wearing a broken leather armor, holding a knife in his hand, full of beards, and looked like a down-and-out soldier. "Who is there? Don't hide it, I'll see you." The man's voice was low, with a little vigilance. I felt tight in my heart, and my hands couldn't help but touch the hanging wall, but he didn't move forward, instead stopped walking, and raised his hands to signal that he was not enemies. "I'm not an enemy, don't be nervous. My name is Tianyou. I've passed here and listened in silence to see." I squinted my eyes and looked at him without saying a word. He saw that I didn't believe it and smiled bitterly. "Brother, I am really not the helping God. Look at my behavior, like theirs? Besides, I want to harm you, so I have called someone." I heard that this made some sense and relaxed a little, but I was still not completely relieved. "How do you know about the new apostle of God?" Tianyou snatched his shoulders and inserted his knife back to his waist with his hands. "Who doesn't know about this mainland? The new god apostle went to the village of Thursday and captured the so-called distortedness. I also hid themselves for several months. You are probably being chased and killed, right?" I clicked my head and didn't say much, but my little sister suddenly said in a low voice, "Brother, I'm so cold." Her voice was as weak as a mosquito scream. When I looked down, her lips were purple. Tianyou heard this, glanced at Naruto, squatted down and took a look. "She is in a bad state, so she must find a place to keep warm, otherwise it won't last long." I was anxious, but I didn't dare to trust him easily. Tianyou saw me hesitate and sighed. "That's it. I know there is a hidden cave nearby. It's not far away. It's suitable to hide. If you don't believe me, just take her over by yourself and I'll show you the way." I gritted my teeth and agreed. Tianyou didn't say anything, and took us through several paths, and indeed came to a hidden cave. The entrance of the cave was surrounded by vines, and you wouldn't find it if you didn't look carefully. After entering, it was still dry. Tianyou took out some dry firewood from his backpack and set up a fire. The fire lit up, and the little sister's face looked better. "Thank you," I said in a low voice, and Tianyou snatched his hand. "A small matter. What's going on with you? Why are you chased like this?" I hesitated for a moment and still briefly explained the slaughter in the village. Of course, I didn't mention the pendant and that power. After Tianyou finished listening, his face darkened. "It's the new apostle of God again. For this helping beasts, someone will have to deal with them." I heard the hatred in his words and couldn't help asking, "Why do you have a grudge against them?" Tianyou sneered, "My family used to be a neighbor. After the new god came to power, he insisted that we worship the old god and burn the village clean. After I escaped, I realized that all kinds of worship are excuses. They just wanted to clean up all those who were dissatisfied. I have been wandering around these years just to find opportunities to avenge them." I clicked the head and felt a little more trust in him in my heart. At this time, the little sister moaned softly, and I rushed over and hugged her and patted her on the back. Tianyou looked at us and was silent for a while, and suddenly said, "If you don't go, you can follow me. I know there is a place that may help you." "Where?" I was stunned. "Essence Forest." Tianyou whispered softly, his eyes flashing. "There is the power of the old god, and there is also a threat of the old god's temple. Since you have been chased by the apostle of the new god, you may have some connection with the old god, so there may be a way out to go there. Old Temple of the Holy God? The apostle just said deadly, and the strangeness of the slap in my brain, and I didn't think it was too difficult to deal with me. I was about to ask for details when a humming voice suddenly came out of the cave, as if someone was talking. Tianyou and I looked at each other. Lima turned off the fire, hid at the entrance of the cave and stole the hearing. There are footprints nearby, so I shouldn't run far away. A cold voice sounded, and my heart sank. It was the apostle of the new god. How did they find it? Tianyou made a hand to silence his voice and said in a low voice, "There is a small path behind the hole, let's go from there." I picked up my little sister and followed Tianyou and quietly walked away from the back. But the road was narrow and steep, and after walking for a few steps, the little girl accidentally stepped off a stone. The sound was particularly alarming at night. The apostle Rima outside shouted, "There is a silence over there. Chase! Run!" Tianyou growled and thrust his head. I gritted my teeth and followed, but the pursuers from behind were getting closer and closer, and the arrows swept over with their ears. I was so anxious that the little girl inside was shaking hard, and I ran slower and slower. "Tianyou, give her to me." Tianyou suddenly stopped, reached out to pick up the little girl, and carried it on his shoulder. "You'll stop, hurry." I didn't have time to hesitate, and then turned around to face the chasing apostle. The hanging wall began to heat up again. I clenched my fists and silently said in my heart, "Come on, give me strength." As soon as the blue light flashed, I felt my whole body filled with the heat. Although it was not as strong as last time, it was also useful. Several apostles came over and I punched me directly, and the one in the head was beaten and hit the tree. The others were stunned for a moment and shouted, "He is a stranger, killed." But I didn't give them any chance. I just beat them up and knocked them down in a few seconds. But this is just the first wave, and more people are coming later. I gasped heavily and turned around and saw that Tianyou had already run away with his little sister. I gritted my teeth and turned around and continued to run, but at this time, an arrow hit my shoulder, causing me to almost kneel down. I pulled out the arrow hard and blood flowed all my arms, but the blue light slowly swept into the wound, stopping the blood, and the pain was not so painful. This thing is so amazing. I gritted my teeth and continued to run forward. Finally, a dense forest appeared in front of me, with trees that were so high that there was a faint fog in the air. Tianyou stood at the entrance waiting for me, saw me coming, and said in a low voice, "This is the spiritual forest. If they enter, they dare not chase after it." I clicked the head and diamonded in with him. Sure enough, the apostle behind stopped in the forest and did not dare to come in. He just shouted a few words away and then retreated. I relaxed, but before I could relax for long, a bowstring suddenly came from the forest, and several arrows shot down from the tree, thrusting straight into our brains. "Be careful." Tianyou pushed me off and was shot in his shoulder, and he hummed in pain. I looked up and saw several strong figures standing on the tree, wearing green cloaks and pointed ears, which should be spiritual. Their eyes were as cold as ice, and a woman on her head shouted, "Humans are good at putting in forbidden areas and seeking death." I felt anxious and hurriedly said, "We are not enemies. We were chased by the new god apostle, and we came in only if we had no place to go." But the female spirit didn't hear it at all, and another wave of arrows shot over her hand. I gritted my teeth and protected my younger sister. The blue light burst out and I held a few arrows, but I was still injured for a few places. "Stop!" Tianyou suddenly shouted, took out a strange wood carving from it and raised it high. "I am the descendant of the Guardian of the Alliance, come to seek shelter." The female elf was stunned for a moment, signaled her subordinates to stop, jumped off the tree, walked to Tianyou, looked at the wood carving coldly, and finally pointed, "Tell me, who are you?" Tianyou gasped and briefly explained our experience. After listening to the female spirit, her face became a little calmer, and she introduced herself. "My name is Wang Ruoshua, the sacred girl of the spirit clan. Since you are the enemy of the new god, you can stay there at any time. But I warn you that the secrets in the forest cannot be explored. If you have any distracting heart, don't worry about killing them." I slided my head and felt relaxed. Wang Ruoxue took us to a secret treehouse settlement, and found a healer to take care of her little sister, and finally came to a stable position. At night, Wang Ruoxue and Haoyu chatted with me a lot against the bonfire. They told me that the old god was once the creator of this vast land, and later the new god usurped power, slaughtered the old god believers, and destroyed the ancient Horde alliance. It is said that the last temple of the old god contains the secrets of the enemy-free army. As long as the fragments of the Gathering Alliance can awaken the army and overthrow the new divine rule. Correction fragments? I asked with a smile. Yes. Wang Ruoxue pointed his head. The debris of the Alliance are scattered in the hands of the human race, the spirit and the dwarf, representing the ancient oath. Only by gathering them can we open the temple of the holy god and gain the ultimate power of the old god. The power on you should be the awakening of the old god's blood, so the new god's apostle chases you to death. I looked down at the hanging wall, my heart trembled. It turns out that all this is not a coincidence. My fate has long been with this battle. Haoyu patted my shoulder. God, our purpose is the same. I will help you find the fragments, rebuild the army, and do the god of renovation. I clicked my head and a sensation ignited in my heart. Okay, that's it. But the voice fell, and a sudden alarm sound of a hurry came out of the treehouse. Wang Ruoxue's face changed. No, someone has come in. We rushed out and saw that there was a flash of fire in the forest. A team of new gods came in hard, and the head was the small head that was chasing me before. He sneered and shouted, "Super the odds, otherwise you will burn this forest." Looking for death? Wang Ruoxue shouted angrily, summoned a green barrier to slam the first wave of arrows. I gritted my teeth and tightened the hanging wall. The blue light burst out again, feeling that the power was a little stronger than before. Haoyu said in a low voice, "Tianyou, let's cooperate. They have a lot of people, and they can't force it directly. If you attract attention, Ruoxue and I sneak from the side." I clicked my head, roared and pushed my body forward, carrying several swords into the middle of the enemy, and smashed my fists with the sound, and several apostles were directly beaten. Wang Ruoxue summoned the vine on the side and stopped the enemy's double foot. Haoyu held the knife and took the lead. The three of them cooperated without any tricks. The little head saw that the action was not good, and gritted his teeth and shouted, "Go back. Go back and report." But how could I let him run away? He rushed over with a quick step, and the blue light turned into a light blade, slashing hard on his back. He screamed and couldn't get up. Wang Ruoxue walked over and said, "No, your strength is stronger than I thought." Haoyu also grinned and said, "God, our combination is invincible." I smiled and pointed, but I knew in my heart that this was just the beginning. The new apostle of God will not be able to rest, and the path to the fragments of the alliance is still very long. I held the hanging wall tightly, looked at the night sky far away, and secretly swore in my heart, no matter how difficult it is, I will find the temple of Holy Sea, wake up the army, and let the new god pay the price. The morning fog in the forest had not dissipated yet, so I packed up my clothes with Haoyu and Wang Ruoxue and prepared to go out. The little sister's condition was almost stable. The elves' healer said that she needed to be calm and stayed in the settlement at all times. Although I was not willing to let go, I also knew it was too dangerous to carry her on the road, so I could only ask the elf clan to take care of her. Before leaving, I hugged her and said in a low voice, "When I come back, I will take you through a good life. Brother, be careful." The little girl's eyes were red. I touched her head, put on a smile, and turned around to follow the team. Although the heart is heavy, it is more about fighting. The first piece of the alliance fragment was already in the hands of the spirit clan. Wang Ruoxue handed himself to me. It was a green crystal carved with ancient runes. It was held in his hand, as if it was hidden in his mysterious power. She said that the next piece of fragments is in the Dwarf Mountain, and only by gathering 3 pieces can the old temple of God be opened. The dwarf has a bad temper, especially their clan leader, King Iron, who said he could smash the mountain with 1 stone. Haoyu walked to me and talked to me with a little bit of worry. Although they are not the same as the new god, they don't like outsiders to interfere in their affairs. I want to convince them to join the alliance, so I guess they will have some energy. You have to dry up even if you have enough energy, I said, gritting my teeth and holding the hanging wall around my waist. Although the blue light was not stable, I could feel a little stronger every time I used it up. I must report the hatred of the new god's apostle, and no fragment of the alliance can be left behind. Wang Ruoshua walked in front, her green cloak was flying with a cold voice. The dwarves value strength and honor. As long as we prove our strength, they will hear it. But remember, don't pick them, otherwise there will be no chance to talk. I clicked my head and thought in my heart how to make the dwarf submit. After walking for 3 days, I finally arrived at the edge of the dwarf mountain. At first glance, the place was covered with gray rocks, and smoke was roaming on the top of the mountain, and you could hear the sound of knocking on the iron. There was a smell of iron and pyrodisiacs in the air, and you could also see smashed rocks on the road, as if they were being slashed by some monster. This is the land of the dwarves, the heart of lava. Tianyou pointed to a huge mountain pass in front and said softly, their settlement is in the mountains, and there are heavy troops guarding the entrance, so we have to get this first. As soon as we approached the pass, we heard a rough roar, stop. Who dares to be in the heart of lava? Before we finished speaking, several dwarf warriors jumped out from behind the rock. Although one was only as tall as my waist, his muscles were bulging like iron blocks. He held a giant axe and iron block in his hands, his face was bearded, and his eyes were as big as a copper flap. I rushed to start and signaled that I was not a despicable person. We are not here to find trouble. My name is Tianyou. These are my companions Tianyou and Wang Ruoshua. We have important things to see your clan leader, which is related to the fate of the entire mainland. The dwarf warrior on the head looked us up and down, and hummed, Bigland's life? Stop pulling these useless. The heart of lava does not welcome outsiders. Go back, otherwise don't blame us for being rude. As he said, he snatched his hand, and several dwarfs stood up behind him and pulled out a squad, knocking the iron on the ground, emitting a bang-bang loud bang. My heart sank, knowing that it would not work, so I lowered my voice. We know that you are not the same as the new god. Their minions will hit here sooner or later. We are here to form an alliance, fight against the new god together, and protect everyone's home. After hearing this, the dwarf warrior sneered, but he still sneered, unity? Just hate you some little kids? We dwarves are not mingling with weak chickens. If you have the ability, I will say this. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly smashed over, and the ground shook for a lot of force. I reacted quickly, and the blue light flashed and I took a hard hit. Although I was not injured, my arms were numb. This guy is really not strong. I gritted my teeth and shouted, okay, come here. As I said, I rushed up, and I punched him head-on, which shocked him to take 2 steps back, full of surprise. It's a little bit interesting. He grinned and rushed on. I didn't retreat and punched him several times. Although his strength was not as strong as him, his speed was fast, so he could only defend. The dwarf warrior beside him was stunned and shouted, this kind of human is not simple. Come on a few more times and try his bottom line. Wang Ruoshua and Tianyou did not interfere, but just stood behind and watched. Tianyou said in a low voice, Tianyou, don't work too hard, keep some energy, the real test is still behind. I clicked the head and took advantage of the dwarf's gasping air to kick him in the chest and kicked him to the ground. He got up, rubbed his chest, and laughed, good boy, there's a kind. I'm fist grew, you're over. Let's go, I'll take you to see the clan leader, but whether you can convince him depends on your own ability. I relaxed and followed Gru into the pass. The inside of the heart of lava is like a huge dungeon, and there is a red melting furnace at the end. The sound of the dwarf craftsman knocking on the iron is not absolutely in his ears, and the air is as hot as a steamer. We were taken to a huge stone hall, and in the middle was a dwarf full of faces and cheeks. He was even more slim than Grove, wearing an iron crown on his head, and holding a huge war bell in his hand, with a hurricane like a mountain. Why are you here? What are you going to fuck? His voice was as low as thunder, shaking my ears buzzing. Gru lowered his head and reported what happened just now. After hearing this, he narrowed his eyes and looked at me. I heard that you beat me to guard my way, and I have some ability. But the Alliance is not a disaster. I give us a reason, otherwise I will roll out the heart of lava. I took a deep breath, took out the crystal of the Spirit Clan, and raised high, I am the descendant of the old god's blood, and gathered the fragments of the Alliance, awakened the enemy-free army, and overthrew the new divine rule. The Spirit Clan has joined us and is now moving to the dwarfs. Are you glorious warriors? Can you be willing to watch the new god apostle kill and plunder? After hearing this, the Iron King was silent for a while, and then sneered, Old god? Humph, is it worth our life to be killed? Then, why do you believe you have this ability? I felt nervous and knew that it was useless to say it, so I gritted my teeth and said, Don't believe it? Then try my strength. If you win, we will leave. If I win, you join the Alliance and hand over the fragments. What's the case? The dwarf warriors in the temple heard it, and they burst out the croaker at the moment, shouting, What a big voice! Clan leader, beat him up. The Iron King stared at me and grinned, I'm sorry. Okay, I'll play with you. Before he finished speaking, he suddenly stood up, fought and smashed over with a wave of heat. I was shocked, and the blue light burst out, and it hit hard, but the force was more than 10 times stronger than Glulu. I was directly shocked and the stone slabs under my feet cracked. The Iron King laughed, That's all that capable? Come again. I gritted my teeth and pushed it up. The blue light turned into a light blade. I fought hard with him for a few times. Every hit made my mouth numb, but I didn't retreat. My brain is full of the shadows of my father and mother, and my younger sister's crying voice. This battle cannot be eliminated. After a few moves, I found a gap and punched him in the battle, which made him take a step back. Good boy. The Iron King's eyes lit up and his fighting spirit became more intense, but at this moment, a sudden emergency police report came from outside the hall, and a dwarf warrior rushed in and shouted, Clan leader, it's not good. The troops of the new god apostle have been killed and headed straight to the fragmented warehouse. The Iron King's face darkened and he cried, This is something that can help me, dare to come to my place to go wild. He turned to look at me and snorted, For those who come out, put the Alliance aside and advance to help me fuck this fragment. I can consider handing it over to you. I clicked the head and Lima, Haoyu, and Wang Ruoshua rushed out of the stone hall. There was already a group outside, with hundreds of new god apostles wearing black armor, giant wolf, and rushing into the heart of lava. The head was a tall man wearing blood-red armor and half an iron mask on his face, his eyes as cold as a knife, and a long black halberd in his hand, which made people breathless. Yao Kun. Wang Ruoshua said in a low voice, his face was hard to see, the chief apostle of the new god, I didn't expect him to come to him. My heart sank. When I first saw the enemy in this story, the pressure was instantly full. Yao Kun looked at the whole scene and his voice was low, Support the fragments of the strange Tianyou and the Alliance, otherwise the heart of the lava will turn into ashes. Be a dream. The Iron King roared and rushed forward with a dwarf warrior, but Yao Kun just sneered, and his long halberd brought out a black light. Several dwarf warriors were directly chopped and flew away, and even their screams were not available. His elite troops were also killed, and the fighting power was strong. Although the dwarf warriors were brave, they could not resist at all. God bless you, we have to help you. Haoyu roared, pulled out his sword and rushed forward, and Wang Ruoshua summoned the vines and green light to support him from afar. I gritted my teeth, and the blue light burst out, rushing Yao Kun. I know he is the head, and killing him can turn the game around. Looking for death. Yao Kun snorted coldly, and his long halberd pierced straight over. I dodged on my side and slashed the blue light blade, but his black light slammed my attack, and slammed my backhand into my chest. I flew out and hit the stone wall, so much pain that I almost vomited blood. With this ability, can you dare to challenge the new god? Yao Kun sneered, and the long halberd stabbed again. I gritted my teeth and rolled open, but it was still rubbed against my shoulders, and blood instantly sprinkled out. I gasped and felt my whole body trembling. This guy was so strong that I couldn't deal with it. Tianyou, don't fight hard. Haoyu shouted, stealing Yaoquan from the side, but he didn't even look at it. He swung Haoyu with a halberd backhand and hit the ground and couldn't move. Wang Ruoshua's magic was also easily broken by the black light. Her face turned white and bleeding from the corners of her mouth. His power is too strong. I watched my companion fall down, and my heart felt like I was being stabbed by a knife. The dwarf warriors were also seriously injured and died. Although the Iron King was still squeezing, he was covered in blood. Yaoquan walked over with a sneer and pointed at me. Outside, your way is at the top. I will give you a happy ending. I gritted my teeth. My brain was full of hope, but the hanging wall in my hand suddenly burned like a burn of fire, and the low voice in my brain resounded again. I have sensed your will. Burn it, let go of my anger. As soon as the voice fell, an unprecedented heat flowed from the husk and rushed into my body, as if my blood was burning. I yelled in pain, but then, the blue light burst into pieces, turning into a beam of light and rising into the sky. The wounds on my whole body began to fit in, and the sense of power was so strong that it seemed to explode. This is... Yaoquan's face changed and he was surprised for the first time. I gasped and stood up, feeling like I had changed my body. The blue light condensed into a giant sword. I suddenly rushed towards Yaoquan. The sword light flashed and knocked him back a few steps. Impossible! Yaoquan roared, and the black light burst out, and he fought hard with me for a few moves, but this time I didn't retreat. Every drama was filled with anger, forcing him to retreat. The Iron King saw this and shouted, "Brothers, please! Fight them with this kid." The dwarf warrior was very excited, and Haoyu and Wang Ruoshua also stood up and joined the battle again. "Yaoquan, your doomsday is here!" I roared, and the blue light giant slashed hard. He hit him hard, and was shocked to kneel on his knees, and his armor was cracked. He gritted his teeth and stared at me, feeling unwilling. "You're going to leave this time, it's a big deal, we'll have a date later." After speaking, he ordered his men to retreat, and withdrew quickly with his soldiers. I gasped and stood there. The blue light dissipated, my body began to soften again, and I almost knelt down. Haoyu ran over to support me and grinned, "Tianyou, you are so good." I just had that moment, so I couldn't get it. Wang Ruoshua also pointed, "Your potential is greater than I thought." The Iron King walked over, covered in blood, but his eyes were full of respect. "Boy, I'm convinced. In this battle, you saved the Heart of Lava. From today on, the dwarves will join your alliance," he said, and he took out a red crystal from it and handed it to me. "This is our alliance fragment, take it." I took the crystal stone and felt a sense of accomplishment in my heart. Although it was almost over, the alliance was first completed and Yaoquan was defeated. This battle was worth it. I held the crystal, looked at the direction of Yaoquan's retreat, and secretly swore in my heart, "I'll kill you with my own hands next time." The Iron King patted my shoulder and laughed, "Let's go back to the Stone Palace, let's have some fun wine. This helps the new god's legs, sooner or later we will be stepped on under our feet." I clicked and followed him into the Stone Palace. Although my body still hurt, a fire burned in my heart. The alliance fragments are still 1 block away, and the enemy-free army is getting closer and closer. The Lava Heart's meritorious banquet was as hot as the new year. The sound of the dwarf warriors came from the stone hall. The Iron King held a large glass of wine and clinked with me, full of red light. "Boy Tianyou, this battle is beautiful. From today on, we dwarves will be your iron rod brothers." I grinned and took the wine glass and drank it all. Although the wine made me cough, the heat in my heart had overwhelmed everything. Haoyu sat beside him, gnawing on a piece of roasted goat legs, muttering while eating, "The 2 alliance pieces have been obtained, and we have to seize that piece of human being. We have to grab it. The new god apostle will not give us a chance to breathe. Yaoquan must be holding back the ultimate move." Wang Ruoshua pointed his head, his eyes were cold. "The human fragments are all gone, and he said that being held heavily by the new god's outpost, it is not that easy to take it down." I held the two crystals in my hand tightly, and the green and red lights intersected, and a fight ignited in my heart. No matter how difficult it is, we have to do it. Gather the fragments and wake up the enemy army. Yao Kun and the new god will be finished. The Iron King laughed and slapped the table. Okay, there is a thing. Our dwarves have produced 500 elves, fight with you. In addition to the 200 archers that the Spirit Clan had answered before, and some wandering soldiers I recruited in the border these days, the army has begun to take shape, with almost 800 people. Although it is still a small witch who meets the great witch compared to the new god's army, this is my first step to revenge. A few days later, we set up and found that Tianyou was responsible for contacting the scout to explore the way. Wang Ruoxue used magic to bless the team's obscurity. I led the head and aimed directly at the new god outpost near the old city. This site was built on a wasteland, surrounded by high-pitched stone walls, covered with crossbows, and the guards were estimated to have thousands of people, all of whom were the elites of the new god's apostles. Tianyou and I squatted on the far hillside, observing the terrain, and muttered in our hearts, "This place is easy to defend and difficult to attack, and many people are killed by the front attack." Tianyou clicked the head and lowered his voice. I heard it before. There is a line behind them. Every 3 days, a team will be flocking grass. We can ambush the team and mix in and work outside. This way, there will be less damage. My eyes lit up when I heard it. Good idea. That's it. After the plan was decided, we moved quickly. On the third night, the moon was dark and the wind was high. Sure enough, the trains appeared. More than a dozen large cars were loaded with food and protected only 50 people. I was ambushed by a small team of heroes on the road. Wang Ruoxue used magic to create a fog to cover up, and Tianyou took people from the side to cover them. When the team entered the siege circle, I called the command, and the dwarf warrior rushed up and smashed it hard. The spirit archer went away and knocked down his guard in just a few minutes. Switch their clothes and let's mix in. I ordered in a low voice, and the army quickly changed into the broken black armor of the new apostle of the gods, and put them into a team member, pushing the car toward the point. The soldiers guarding the door saw that they were his own people. Without much doubt, they let them go after a few questions. I felt a relaxed voice in my heart. After I took the people in, I quickly fell into the team and prepared to wait for the sudden outbreak in the middle of the night. At midnight, most of the guards at the juncture were asleep, leaving only a few patrol teams wandering. Tianyou and I winked, and led our heads towards the guard tower. The dwarf warriors were responsible for smashing the weapon warehouse. The elite archers climbed up to the high point to sniper crossbow gunners. For a while, fires burst out everywhere at the point, and the sound of killing was shocking. My blue light burst out, and a sword broke out and opened the gate of the guard tower, and rushed in to take the enemy's small head. Absolutely. Report it quickly. The little head responded quite quickly, and he was against me, but he was not my opponent and I knocked it to the ground in just a few moves. I stepped on his chest and asked coldly, "Where are the Human Alliance fragments?" "Say." He gritted his teeth and refused to open his mouth. I was about to force him to ask when a loud noise suddenly came from outside, as if something had exploded. "God, you, no! We're caught!" Tianyou rushed in, his face covered in blood, and he was panting. Someone leaked the secret, and the aid troops were ambushed at the point. Our people were surrounded. My heart sank, and my brain buzzed. The Lima rushed out and took a look. Sure enough, a large number of black-armored soldiers suddenly appeared around him, with a number of several times more than us. The crossbow arrows shot over like rain. The dwarf warriors and the spirit archers fell down one after another, and their screams were not endless. Why is this happening? I gritted my teeth and protected my body in the blue light to penetrate the enemy's test map to tear the gap, but the enemy gathered more and more, as if I had prepared it. Wang Ruoxue used magic to support her behind her, but her face became whiter and whiter, and it was obvious that her magic power was almost exhausted. Tianyou slapped his sword and shouted, "God, you, retreat. If you don't leave, you have to explain this." But I feel unwilling to accept that if this battle is over, not only will the army be over, but the Alliance will not be able to get the fragments. As he was stalking, a low smile suddenly echoed from the far corner. Yaoquan's guy was riding a giant wolf and walked out of the enemy's siege. The blood-red armor was particularly dazzling under the fire. He pointed his finger and sneered, "Tianyou, you really dare to die. I knew you would come here for a long time, so I specially set up a game to wait for you to get on the hook." I gritted my teeth and wanted to fight with him, but half of the troops were injured and killed. If I continue to fight, I will only be defeated by the entire army. At this moment, a familiar figure walked out from behind Yaoquan, wearing black armor and a charming smile on his face. It was a team leader named Lin Feng, whom I recruited in with my hands. "Lin Feng? You?" I widened my eyes, my brain full of disbelief. He grinned and said indifferently, "God, you, don't blame me, people always have to plan for themselves. The price given by the new god is much higher than that of you. Tell you, the information I gave to you on purpose was the one I missed to you, haha." I felt like I was stabbed by a knife in my heart, and my anger thrusts into my brain, "You beast. I think you are a brother." I rushed over and wanted to kill him, but when Yaoquan's long halberd was blown, the black light burst out, and it directly shocked me a few meters away, hitting the stone wall. The inside seemed to be broken, and I vomited blood because of the pain. "Tianyou, don't be forced." How you rushed over to support me, but he was also shot into the shoulder with an arrow, gritting his teeth in pain. Wang Ruoxue forced himself to support the magic barrier, but the enemy's attack became more and more fierce. The barrier shattered with a click sound, and she fell to the ground, bleeding from the corners of her mouth. Yaoquan walked over with a sneer, and pointed at me, "Out of the matter, your army is over, and your companions can't save you. Hand over the slaughter and fragments, I will give you your life, otherwise, today will be your death." His voice pierced into my heart like ice. I looked at the falling brothers around me, and heard the cry from afar, and my heart was full of hope. "No. I can't transfer." I gritted my teeth and stood up, but Yaoquan didn't give me any chance. The long halberd blew, and the black light turned into a giant blade, slashing straight over. My blue light burst out and I was barely holding it back, but the force was too strong. I was directly chopped and crashed into the stone wall. The whole person rolled into a deep crack behind me. God bless. Haoyu's roar came from above, but I couldn't hear it clearly. My ears were full of voices, and my body was uncontrollably slammed downwards, hitting the rock wall, and my bones seemed to be falling apart. I tried to catch something, but my hands were covered with gravel and I couldn't stop. Finally, with a bang, I hit the bottom of the deep and clean, and my mind became dark because of the pain. It's over, it's all. I lay on the cold stone, blood pouring out from my body, and the force of my fingers was gone. My brain was full of pictures of the slaughtered army, and Lin Feng's proud face. I was so angry that my teeth were almost broken. But what could it be? I can't even save myself, so why should I talk about revenge? The hanging wall was still hanging on my chest, flashing faintly with the blue light, as if mocking my incompetence. I smiled bitterly and muttered in a low voice, "Dad, Mom, I'm sorry. I can't avenge you. Little sister, I'm sorry, I may not be able to go back." The eyes were mixed with blood, and I closed my eyes, just thinking about sleeping. But at this moment, the skull suddenly burned like a fire, and the low voice in the sea of brain resounded again, clearer than before, "I have sensed your hope. However, your will has not yet been extinguished, and the fire of revenge is still burning. I will give you the ultimate power, and on behalf of me, we will ward off the usurper, destroy the new god." What is the ultimate force? I was confused, but the heat had already flowed into my body from the hanging wall, as if I had reshaped my flesh and blood. I yelled loudly in pain, but then, the wound began to fit at a speed visible to the naked eye. The bones were clicked and connected again. The whole body felt so full of strength that it was about to explode. The blue light burst out from me, illuminating the entire purity, turning into a pillar of light that shook the sky. I suddenly opened my eyes, feeling like I was sacking my body and changing my bones. There was a lot of strange memories and fighting instinct in my brain, as if the old god had poured his power into my body. I lowered my head and saw that the hanging wall had completely merged into my chest, turning into a blue rune seal, emitting a terrifying breath. Is this the ultimate power of the old god? I clenched my fist and swung it with my hand. The blue light turned into a light blade, directly slashing the rock wall on the deep side. The stones broke into powder like tofu. My heart was shocked. This power was more than 100 times stronger than before. It was simply not a single file. But I didn't have time to be happy, and there was still a war on the upper floor. Tianyou and Tianyou were still waiting for me. I gritted my teeth, and the blue light wrapped around my whole body. I suddenly rushed up from the bottom of the penis several hundred meters deep, smashing it back to the ground like a cannon. Awaken was carrying people to attack the siege of troops. When I saw me suddenly appear, my face changed. Why haven't you died yet? Die? I'll let you know what death is today. I roared angrily, and the blue light burst out, turning into a giant sword, rushing Awaken. His long halberd was blown and the black light came to meet him, but this time, his black light was broken in front of me, and he was directly smashed. The halberd was shaken by more than 10 meters and hit the ground, and his armor was cracked. Impossible. Awaken spitted out a mouthful of blood, his face full of disbelief. I didn't give him a chance to breathe, but in the past I was attacking fiercely, and each sword was powered by the old god, forcing him to retreat. His elite team wanted to come and help, but with a swipe, I swept the blue light and several dozen people were blown away, and even the screams were not even enough. God, you're back. Tianyou saw me and his eyes lit up. Although he was full of injuries, he grinned like a fool. Tianyou also stood up reluctantly and looked at me in surprise. Your power has completely changed. I pointed, without saying much, and turned around and sneered at Awaken. This time, I'm here to send you on my way. Awaken gritted his teeth, stood up with a force, and shouted, oddly, don't be proud. The power of the new god is not something you can compete with. His black light exploded again, but I was not worried at all. The giant blue light slashed and beat him to the ground, and blood flowed out from under the mask. Seeing that the action was not good, he growled and said, retreat. This kid will hand it over to the master for treatment. After speaking, he led the wolf to escape with a defeated soldier. I gasped and didn't catch up because the army suffered too much loss, and less than 200 people survived, and one was injured. Tianyou walked over and patted my shoulder, with a low voice, God, this battle, we are so depressed. I pointed my head, and my heart felt like I was being knives. Lin Feng's betrayal and the victims of my brothers made me wish I could kill the new god's nest now. But I know, it's not the time. I clenched my fists, looked at the blue rune in my hand, and said in a low voice, I will slowly calculate this account with Awaken and Xianshen. Let's go back first, reorganize the army, and find the last piece of fragment. Tianyou pointed, with a calm look, your strength has been awakened, and the hope of the enemy-free army is right in front of me. I turned around and looked at the direction of Awaken's escape, and a fire ignited in my heart. Although this battle has been eliminated, the ultimate power of the old god is already in my hands. Next time, I will let the new god Apostle Blood be destroyed. Brothers of the military, I will definitely report your hatred. Under the night, the broken flames turned out, and we held the wounded and evacuated slowly. Although I was very worried, there was an unprecedented belief in my heart. The old are still ahead, and the final alliance fragments are waiting for us, and the end of Awaken and the new god will not be too far away. The night wind shaves through the point of failure, and the air still has the smell of blood and burnt breath. I stood between the walls of the slaughtered walls, and the blue runes glowed slightly on my chest, as if reminding me of the power I just woke up. Tianyou and Tianyou stood beside them, although they were covered in scars, but there was a burst of hope in their eyes. Although the brothers of the military were very frustrated, less than 200 people survived. Everyone looked at me, as if they had put all their last beliefs on me. Tianyou, what should I do next? Tianyou wiped the blood from his face and asked with a sound. I clenched my fists tightly, looked down at the 2 alliance fragments in my hand, and gritted my teeth and said, "Go back, reorganize the army and find the last fragment. Let's calculate the account between Yaokuan and the new god." My voice was not loud, but every word seemed to be pulled out of the tooth, carrying a ruthlessness. Wang Ruoxue was slightly lit up, and his face under the green cloak was still pale, but his eyes were determined. "Your power has been completely awakened, and the hope of the enemy army is right in front of you. The last piece of fragment that has always been lost must be obtained." I nodded, turned around and helped a severe dwarf warrior up, and said in a low voice, "Brothers, hold on, our battle has not been finished." On the way back, my brain was full of Lin Feng's proud face, and the image of Yao Kun sneering and snatching a halberd. Hate burns my heart like fire, but I know that the current impulse will only kill the remaining brothers in vain. I have to endure it, and I have to stand up again, so that the new apostles of God know that they have caused trouble. A few days later, we returned to the settlement of the Spirit Forest. When my little sister saw me, she came down with a swish look. She came over and hugged me. "Brother, you're fine." "It's great." I touched her head and smiled. "Don't worry, my brother is so desperate." But my heart felt like I was being stabbed by a knife. The defeat of the army and the worry of my little sister made me more determined and wanted Yaokuan to pay the price. The aids of the spirits and dwarves were soon in place. The Iron King came here with 300 dwarves. The first sentence I saw was, "Boy, did you hear you eat the big shot? It's okay. Our dwarves will prepare to smash the new god's helping dog." Wang Ruoxue also tuned the archers and magicians of the spirits, and his voice was cold. "God, the military is sluggish, but your reply is the best call. As long as you stand up, they will follow you to the end." I sniffed my head, took a deep breath, and walked to the high platform in the center of the settlement, facing the remaining troops and the aid troops who had just arrived. The blue light spread out from the runes on my chest and covered my whole body. I suddenly pulled out the long sword from my waist, raised it high, and shouted, "Brothers! My God is back!" The new apostle thought he could trample us to death, but they were wrong. My life was given by my father and mother, and it was replaced by the blood of the people in the village. I will never fall down. Let's report your grudge together. From today on, the enemy team will be reunited. Whoever dares to take the lead, will we kill. As soon as this happened, the audience was silent first, and then a dwarf warrior suddenly lifted the iron and shouted, "Fuck with boss Tianyou. Smash the new god." Then, the elite archers and soldiers also raised their weapons and shouted loudly, "Revenge! Revenge!" As I looked at this scene, the group in my heart was even more intense, and I grinned, "Okay. Our first battle starts from the outpost of the new god and pull out their minions." The reorganization speed of the army was faster than I thought. The magic blessing of the Spirit Clan and the iron armor equipment of the Dwarf Clan made our fighting force rise straight. The power of the old god in my chest became more and more stable, and I could feel a new breakthrough every time I fought. Haoyu is responsible for scouts and information, Wang Ruoxue is responsible for logistics and magical support, and I, with the head, the blue light giant sword falls down with enemies. In the first battle, we chose a small fortress in the neighboring realm of the new god. There were no more than 200 defenders. They were too busy. Relying on the high ground, the crossbows filled the city. I didn't say anything, and I took the dwarf warrior and protected my body with blue light. I carried the crossbow arrows and rushed to the city gate. Slashed the iron gate. The brothers behind me rushed up. The spirit archers were pressed from a high place. In less than half an hour, the fortress was taken down by us, and the guards did not run away. Tianyou boss is mighty. A soldier was covered in blood and shouted excitedly. I stood at the head of the city, and the blue light had not dissipated. Looking at the direction of the new divine power far away, I sneered, "This is just an appetizer, Yaokuan, it's up to you next." In this battle, the military soldiers were greatly excited. After the news broke, the surrounding wandering soldiers and rebel forces came to the scene, and the number of military personnel quickly expanded to 1,500. In the next half-month, we were like a tragedy, breaking the 5 fortresses of the new god. I was at the forefront of every battle, and the blue light giant sword was invincible, and the enemy would get soft when they saw me. The dwarf's iron smashed the city walls, and the elven archer's rain of arrows made the enemy dare not raise them. My name began to be passed on in the resistance force, and even the soldiers of the apostle of the new god began to discuss privately, that god is a monster and cannot be killed at all. The most exciting battle is the point of attacking the new god in the Blackstone Island. This place is a grassroots station on the front line of the new god. There are 500 guards, and the one who leads the forest wind who betrays me. Since then, the guy turned into a small head, wearing black armor and helping his legs. He went to kill and robbed him, and heard that he had slaughtered several rebels with his hands. That night, I took the army and touched the outside of the spot. Tianyou's scout had already explored the terrain clearly. We were divided into 3 groups. The dwarf warriors attracted firepower on the front, and the elves of the wings of the spirit archers sneaked in from behind. As soon as the battle was over, Lin Feng's fellow man was still drinking in the tent. He heard the silence and hurriedly ran out. As soon as he raised his head, he saw me standing in front of him, and the blue giant sliver pointed directly at his brain. God! Tianyou? Why haven't you died yet? Lin Feng was so scared that his legs were soft, and his wine glass fell to the ground with a splash, full of shock. I sneered, and the sound was as low as if I had crawled out of the ground. Lin Feng, I'm not dead, I'm here to send you on my way. He quickly stepped back and shouted in his mouth, I'm wrong. Boss Tianyou, please give me a shot. I was forced to. I'm forced. I kicked him over and kicked him to the ground. The blue light flashed, and the sword tip pressed against his neck. I think you are a brother, I'll give you my life to you. What are you doing to me? I betrayed the army and killed so many brothers, and I'm still embarrassed to ask for help. He shivered and wanted to make a decision, but I didn't have the patience to listen. The sword flashed and directly resulted in him. Seeing him fall, the voice in my heart finally made a little bit, but it was far away, and the real enemy was still behind. In this battle, we not only killed Lin Feng, but also burned the new god's grass warehouse. The defenders were killed without leaving any armor, and they were finally turned into ruins. The news spread, and the resistance force was in full swing, and more people joined the army. In just a few days, the team expanded to 2,000. I stood on the ruins of the Blackstone Island, looked far away from the new god temple, and said in a low voice, Yaokuan, it's your turn. The continuous victory made the new god apostles panic. Their front lines fell one by one, and Yaokuan was forced to adjust his essence and return to defense to try to keep the situation stable. But I didn't give him a chance to breathe. The army was like a sharp knife, penetrated directly into the heart of the new god's power. Every time I fight, I am in the forefront. The blue light giant became the nightmare of the new god's apostle. As long as the soldiers heard God blessed and ran away in surprise. The most important battle is to attack the fortress of the new god in the Iron Blood. This place is the last line of defense on the front line of the Shinshin. The guards are 3,000 soldiers, well-equipped in insignificant land. The city wall is as high as a mountain, with crossbows and catapults. Yaokuan sent his deputy to sit in the town and vowed to hold us. I know that if this battle is won, the front line of the new god will collapse suddenly, and Yaokuan can only retreat to the final temple. Tianyou, this battle is not easy to fight, and it will be very serious if you kill someone. Tianyou stood in a brow and squatted in front of the map to analyze. I pointed and grinned, it's good to fight, we won't be too tough, we're a little smart. Wang Ruoxue heard it and pointed slightly, I can use magic to create a fog to cover up the movements of the army. Dwarfs can dig tunnels and rake from under the city wall. After the plan was decided, we moved all night long. Wang Ruoxue's mist covers the entire battlefield. The elite archer is eager to catch the enemy's attention. Under the lead of the Iron King, the dwarf warrior dug out an authentic tunnel every night and leads directly to the inside of the fortress. I took a team of elite players into the tunnel, and suddenly killed it in the early morning. The blue light burst out, and a sword broke through the inner city gate. The main force of the army took advantage of the trouble and rushed in from the front, and the enemy directly formed a group. "Tianyou is here. Run away." The enemy deputy saw me coming in. His face turned white. He didn't even dare to resist. He just wanted to escape with his wife. But how could I let him run? The blue light flashed and rushed over and overturned his riding. He fell to the ground and got up and wanted to ask for a gift. I sneered, "The dog of the new god, there is no qualification to live." After the sword light passed, he lost his voice on the scene. "In this battle, we killed the sky and the earth, and the 3,000 enemy troops were beaten to the point of being defeated. Our flags were planted on the walls of blood." The military brothers stood at the head of the city, shouting with weapons, "Tianyou is invincible. The military is invincible." I gasped and stood at the highest point. The blue light shone a little bit in the night sky, and the pleasure in my heart burst out. The news was sent to the new god camp, and Awaken finally couldn't sit still. He ordered to withdraw all frontline troops and retreat to the final temple, the giant black tower with the origin of the new god, located in the center of the mainland, surrounded by poisonous fogs and traps, which is easy to defend and difficult to attack. I received a report from the scout and sneered, "Get back. Okay, so I won't let you find you. Let's have a new hatred and an old hatred together." The soldiers of the army were in full swing, and the brothers were screaming to enter the temple and put Awaken and the new god together. I know that the battle is right in front of me, but I haven't received the last piece of the alliance. The old house is just outside the Iron Blood. It is said that the fragments are hidden in a sacrificial fort deep in the wilderness. Although there are not many guards, there are many traps. "Tianyou, you must get the fragments, otherwise you will be able to wake up the enemy team without any consequences." How you reminded me, his face was solemn. I clicked the head, and took a small team of talented people, and dived into the mountains all night. The air was pitch black, the smell of rottenness was filled with the walls, and the walls were full of ancient runes, as if they would live any time. Not long after I walked, the ground suddenly collapsed, and several brothers fell into the trap and were pierced by the spikes. My heart sank, and my body was protected by the blue light, and I pulled the rest up. "This ghost place is really evil." How you wiped his sweat and said. Without saying a word, I continued to walk forward, and finally found a broken sacrificial fort at the deepest point, with a golden crystal stone on it, emitting a faint light. But as soon as he approached, several black shadows suddenly appeared around the sacrificial supreme, like a guardian puppet left by the new god, with great force and no swords and guns in. "Thank me," I growled, and the blue light burst out. The giant slammed and split a puppet into 2.5. The other 2 were hit, and I used the punches and broke them into pieces. Finally, I stood in front of the fort, picked up the golden crystal stones, and put them together with the other 2 pieces of fragments. The 3 crystal stones shone brightly and formed a complete circle with ancient words on it, emitting a strong breath. "It's done." How you patted my shoulder excitedly, and Wang Ruoxue also showed a difficult smile. "The alliance is complete, the road to the temple has opened. Tianyou, the enemy-free army is waiting for us in front." I held the round plate tightly, and a fire ignited in my heart. The time for the battle is finally here. Back at the military ground, I lifted the plate high, and the blue light made everyone's eyes lit up. I yelled, "Brothers, the alliance has been obtained, and the Temple of Holy One is right in front of me. The end of the new god's apostle has arrived. Come with me, kill into the temple, kill Awaken, and overthrow the new god." More than 2,000 people from the army roared, and the sound was shaking, and the ground was shaking, and the military atmosphere was filled directly. Far away, the black giant tower of the new god temple stood in the poisonous fog, like a monster with a bloody mouth waiting for us to join the Ronaldo website. But I was not panicked at all. The blue light in my chest became brighter and brighter. There was only one thought in my heart, "Awaken, this time I will step you under my feet and let the new god rule be completely done." In the middle of the large land covered by the poisonous fog, the black new god temple is like a huge monster, standing on the deserted plain, with the spiral of the tower piercing the sky, and the air around it is full of pungent rotten smell. I stood in front of the army, the blue runes on my chest were emitting dazzling light, and the alliance circle was held in my hand. The enemy army of more than 2,000 people was being installed behind me. The iron archers knocked on the ground and the arrows of the elite archers were already on the strings. The roars of the soldiers were rising one after another, and the soldiers were so high that they were about to explode. God blessed, today is the end of the new god. Tianyou stood beside me, with a knife in his hand, full of his face to fight. Wang Ruoxue was wearing a green cloak, and the magic light was leaping at her fingertips, and his voice was calm and calm. The temple of Holy Spirit is deep in the temple, and the alliance circle will guide us. Yao Kun and the new god are all there, ready to welcome the most difficult battle. I lit my head, took a deep breath, and lifted the long sword in my hand. The blue light burst out, illuminating half the sky. I turned around and shouted at the army, "Brothers! We have been killing all the way, with blood burdens. Today is the time to reckon. The new god apostle slaughtered our home and killed our teachers. Now, we are going to stomp their temple and let Yao Kun kneel down and beg for the robbery. The enemy army, rush. Enhance. Kill them all." The army's roar shocked the poisonous fog and scattered for a few points. More than 2,000 people followed me into the temple like a torrent. The new god guards outside the temple were prepared, with black armored soldiers densely packed with 5,000 people. The crossbows and catapults were mounted high, and the rain of arrows and stone heads smashed like violent winds. But I was not panicked, and I protected my body with the blue light, and held the arrows in front of me. I slashed the iron gate in front of me. The dwarf warriors followed, and the iron smashed all obstacles. The elite archers were forced to control the troops from a long distance. The army was as strong as a bamboo shoot, and they directly tiered the enemy's defense line. Tianyou is here. Retreat. When the new god soldier saw me, his face turned pale. Many people threw down their weapons and ran away. But I didn't give them the opportunity. The blue light turned into a giant slayer. After sweeping over, dozens of soldiers were instantly blown away, and blood was foggy. The military brothers were red-eyed. A dwarf warrior could smash 3 people with one slaughter. The spirit arrows were like the sword of the god of death, reaping the lives of the enemy. In less than half an hour, the defenders outside were killed by us and the soldiers were defeated and the wolf fled into the temple. "Don't let them close," I shouted and walked into the temple gate with people. It was pitch black inside, the air was as cold as it could hold up blood. The wall was filled with strange runes, radiating black light, making people feel uncomfortable. Tianyou wiped the blood from his face and said in a low voice, "The evil gate here is definitely in the deepest place, so we have to be careful of the trap." I clicked the head, and the board of gangs in my hand suddenly lit up, guiding us to walk deeper into the temple. But I didn't walk far away, and the ground suddenly vibrated. There was no black light coming out from the wall, turning into a bunch of puppet monsters. I was so powerful that I couldn't get in. The knife and gun were in, and poisonous gas was leaked from my mouth. I snorted coldly, and the blue light burst out. The giant sword slammed and directly chopped several puppets into pieces, roaring, "Brothers, don't stop. Follow me." Wang Ruoxue summoned the green light barrier and suppressed the poisonous atmosphere. The dwarf warriors and soldiers attacked the puppets, killing a bloody path. Finally, we reached the deepest part of the temple, a huge circular sacrificial fortress. In the center of the sacrificial fortress, a black crystal tower radiating a terrifying sense of pressure, like a container of the origin of the new god. Yao Kun stood in front of the tower, and the blood-red armor was particularly dazzling under the black light. The long halberd was in his hand, and a sneer appeared under the iron mask on his face. His voice was as low as a gangster, "Tianyou, do you really dare to come and die? An enemy army? But it is a group of you Hehe people. Today I will destroy you with my hands. Send to death? I'll send you on my way today." I gritted my teeth, the blue light stormed, the runes on my chest burned like fire, and the power of the old god boiled in my body. Yao Kun snorted coldly, and the long halberd blew, and the black light burst out, turning into a giant blade and slashing straight over. I didn't hide or avoid it. The blue light giant came forward. With a bang, two forces collided together, shaking the entire sacrificial priest, and there were countless gaps on the ground. I have some ability, but I'm not enough. Yaokuan roared angrily, and the black light burst out again, so fast that the naked eye could not keep up with it. The long halberd pierced my chest. My body flashed and my body was protected, but I was still shocked and my mouth was numb. But I didn't retreat. My brain was full of the shadow of my father and mother, and the blood of my army brothers. I gritted my teeth and rushed forward, and the blue giant slashed several times, forcing Yaokuan to retreat. God bless you, we will help you. Tianyou growled and snatched Yaokuan from the side. Wang Ruoxue summoned the vine and green magic to try to limit his movements. The dwarf warrior and the spirit archer also rushed up to attack Yaokuan, but his black light was too strong, and he shook Tianyou with one blow. The vines were torn apart in an instant, and several dwarf warriors were knocked into the ground by a long halberd. Will you dare to challenge the new god even if you do it? Yaokuan sneered, and his long halberd blew, the black light turned into a circle of light. The slam wave directly overturned the surrounding military members. Tianyou and Wang Ruoxue were also severely injured and stood up with support. I watched my brothers fall down, and my heart felt like they were burned by fire, and I roared angrily, Yaokuan, your opponent is me. Come on. My blue light stormed, and the power of the old god seemed to be ignited. The low voice in the sea of brain resounded again, blood descendants, let go of all my anger and destroy the usurper. As soon as the voice fell, I felt the blood in my body boiling, and the blue light turned into a beam of light that pushed the sky up, and the air around the sacrificial abbreviation was distorted. I growled, and the blue light condensed into a huge war spear, scattering the breath of destroying the sky and the earth, rushing towards Yaokuan. Is this the ultimate power of the old god? Yaokuan's face finally changed, and the black light burst out with all his strength, trying to resist, but my battle spear was not enough. The shock sound directly pierced his black light barrier and pierced hard into his chest. He screamed, the blood-red armor cracked and the long halberd fell to the ground. The whole person was slapped on the stone wall of the fortress. Blood flowed down the corners of his mouth, and his face was filled with disbelief. How could it be? I actually relocated. Return? This is the report. I gasped and walked over. The blue light giant slashed at him and said in a cold voice, the new apostle of God slaughtered my house, killed my family, and killed countless brothers. Today, I want you to lose blood. After speaking, the blue light flashed and the giant slashed hard. Yaokuan's cry was not even enough to come out, but it was split into 2.5. The blood smog scattered, and there was no sound at all. As soon as Yaokuan died, the black light around the sacrificial fortress began to collapse, and the black crystal tower made a cracking sound, as if it was mourning. I turned around and shouted, brothers, smash this shit temple and let the new gods roll out of our land. The military members were very excited, and the dwarf warriors lifted up the iron, the soldiers slapped their weapons, and rushed towards the crystal tower. My blue light burst out, and the war spear condensed again, and with a blow, the shock sound, the crystal tower collapsed directly, turning into countless pieces. The black light dissipated, and a pure energy poured out from the bottom of the tower, as if the land itself was gasping for breath. But it wasn't over yet. The circle of the alliance suddenly flew out from me, floating in the center of the sacrificial fortification, emitting dazzling three-color light. Green, red and gold woven together to form a huge door of light. Behind the door, you can see countless figures, like a sleeping army, with a strong aura that makes people's legs soft. The sound in the sea of brain sounded again, you have proved your will, and the enemy-free army will fight for you and create a new world. Attack, I'll wake up. I yelled, and the blue light poured into the light door. The sound of the light door waves opened, and countless warriors wearing ancient armor walked out of it, and their spirits were like rainbows, as if they were resurrecting from the legend. They knelt on their knees and shouted in a loud voice, my lord, God bless, we are ordered to fight. The scene was so shocked that my heart almost jumped out, and the military brothers were also stunned. Tianyou grinned. God bless, I am really invincible. The addition of the unrivaled army has brought our warfare to a terrifying height. The remaining strength of the new god temple was no match for it. As soon as the enemy-free army appeared, the black-armored soldiers knelt directly on the ground and begged for the sacrificial fog. The poisonous fog was dissipated, and the wasteland around the temple began to recover. Green grass and flowers grew at a speed visible to the naked eye, as if the mainland was welcoming the new owner. The moment the temple collapsed, I stood at the highest point of the ruins, and the blue light reflected the entire plain as bright as white. Tianyou and Rewritten stood beside me, although they were covered in scars, but their faces were full of smiles. The Iron King walked over with the dwarf warrior and laughed. Boy Tianyou, you're pretty. Our dwarfs are convinced. From now on, you'll be whatever you say. Rewritten also pointed and said in a gentle voice, the Spirit Clan will regard you as your respect, the leader of the new era, you are the ones. I lowered my head and looked at the ruins under my feet, and then at the admiration of the brothers from the far army, and an unprecedented sense of accomplishment surged in my heart. I lifted the long sword, and the blue light burst out again, shouting, the new god is dead, the mainland is reborn. From today on, the enemy-free army will protect this land, no longer be forced or murdered. Let's build a new world belonging to everyone. God blesses thousands of years old. New generation. The military members and the warriors of the Invincible Army shouted loudly, and the sound shook the sky and resounded. Tianyou patted my shoulder and grinned, brother, you did it, we have a grudge. I was a little bit, my eyes were a little hot, my father and mother's face flashed in my brain, and my younger sister's smile. I said in a low voice, Dad, Mom, I didn't disappoint you. A few days later, a temporary palace of thrones was built on the ruins in the center of the mainland. Representatives of the three major races, humans, spirits, and dwarves, gathered together. There were countless leaders and ordinary people who resisted and were surrounded by thousands of people outside the hall, with their eyes full of admiration. I was wearing a blue warrior made by dwarf craftsmen, and the runes on my chest were shining. Standing in the middle of the hall, Tianyou and Rewritten stood on both sides. The Iron King held a crown made by the Spirit Clan for me, with 3 color crystals embedded on it, symbolizing the Alliance's group. God bless you, with your blood, you awaken the enemy-free army, defeat the new god, and save the mainland. Today, we respect you as the Lord of the new era. The Iron King said loudly, and he knelt on his knees, and the dwarf warriors knelt down. Rewritten slapped his hands, and the green light turned into petals and fell. The Spirit Clan also lowered his head to pay tribute. Tianyou carried the soldiers and the representatives of human beings and shouted, the new master is thousands of years old. The thousands of people outside the hall shouted loudly, and the sound was like waves, which made my heart rush. I took the crown and put it on my head. The blue light spread out from me, covering the entire palace. I lifted the long sword, and my voice was low and full of strength. I am blessed by God, and today I am thankful to the trust of the ranks of the new era. I swear that the enemy-free army will always guard the mainland, and the 3 major races coexist equally, no longer have pressure, no more wars. The new world begins today. New world. New Lord. The shouts rose again, and thousands of people knelt down and surrendered, and the scene was so powerful that they felt hot and blood boiled. The little sister was taken to the front of the hall by the elf tribe, wearing a long white dress, looking at me with bright eyes, and said lightly, brother, you are so bad. I smiled and touched her head, and said lowly, in the future, I will give you the best life, and no one dares to bully you. After the coronation ceremony, I ordered the reconstruction of the city in the center of the mainland and named it the capital of new life as the common capital of the 3 major races. The enemy-free army guards all directions to ensure that the remaining power of the new god is completely eliminated. Tianyou was appointed by me as the military regiment, responsible for training new recruits and patrolling the border. He grinned and said, Tianyou, I will follow you here. Wherever there is a war, I will be there. Wang Ruoxue became a magic guru of the New World, bringing the natural power of the Spirit Clan to repair the vast land. Her eyes looked at me a little softer. Tianyou, if you have you in the New World, you will surely be prosperous. The Iron King returned to the dwarf mountain and patted his chest to guarantee, boy, when do you need iron? Call us anytime. The iron of the heart of lava will always be burned for you. I smiled and knew in my heart that the alliance of the three major races has never been so solid, and peace in the mainland finally arrived. At night, I stood on the highest watchtower in the capital of New Life, overlooking the city with bright lights and fire. The plains far away were green and the rivers were clear, as if the mainland was smiling at me. The blue runes on the chest were lit up slightly, as if the old god was silently guarding this land. I clenched my fists and said in a low voice, Dad, Mom, have you seen it? This is the new world I have built for you. The wind blows over and brings warmth. I turn down the tower and greet me with a new era. The shadow of the new god has become. I, God, will lead the enemy-free army and all people to create a bright future that belongs to us.